Welcome back to the vlog. We're going to be at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game. Also, there's going to be 2 bonus hands that are going to be at the end of the video that came from the session the next day that you really don't want to miss. Quite amazing. Also, I'm going to ask all of you one little favor. I'm doing a little experiment here with the algorithm at YouTube. So if you can all hit the like button right now, and then at the end of the video, make a comment, that'd be great. I just really want to see if that changes anything. If everybody, I mean you, right there. Yes, you. Hit that like button for me. All right, thanks. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. We're at Capital Casino, buying into the 1-3 game for $500. First hand we play, we look it down at 2 kings from the button. There's several limpers. I raised to 25. It's been an active game, but everyone seems to find the fold. There was some deep stack, so I added another $500 to my stack. It's been about an hour and a half and I haven't had anything playable since those kings, and finally I get ace-queen suited on the button. A solid player opens for a raise to 20. I think 3-betting is probably the preferred play, but I just put in the call and I get 2 additional callers from the big blind and the early limper. Flop comes 9-7 deuce. It gets checked around. We go see a turn card, which is an ace of hearts. First 2 players check, and now the initial raiser puts out a bet for $40. Definitely has an ace in their range. I think probably the best course of action is just to flat here. So that's what I do. Want to keep them betting all their inferior aces. River card looks pretty safe. It's a 4 of hearts. Don't expect to be up against 2 pair very often. They could have something like a ace king. I was being a little cautious, just put in the call, and they roll over ace jack, so I lost a little value by not raising or playing it more aggressively. I've been fairly active playing a lot of suited connected cards, and I haven't really got too much on the flop. And every time I pick up a big hand like these aces, I would raise. This time I get 1 caller. Flop would actually come ace high, and before I have a chance to get out of bet, the person mucks their cards. So I'm not getting action on my big hands, but I'm getting called a lot on my bad ones. Well, I'm in the big blind and I got 2 queens. There's a $6 straddle on, a couple players limped, and then the player in the cutoff raises to 32. I decide to make it 90, and now it's on the player in the straddle, who has a very deep stack and is a competent player. He thinks for a moment, and he decides to 4-bet to $200. Ooh, don't like this. Don't like this at all. Good player, 4-betting after I 3-bet. Looks very strong. It's folded back around to the player in the cutoff, who is another very competent player, and he ends up jamming for a little less than $500. Now, both these guys are not messing around. I put them on a very tight range of pocket queens, pocket kings, aces, and ace king. And here I'm thinking of what to do. As you can see by the little board above, that with that range, I am like 31% equity, and they are like 34 and 34. With the 5-bet jam, I'm thinking the best situation I can be in is they both have ace king, and I'm like a 55% favorite in the hand. But there's also a chance one has aces, one has kings, and I'm going to be in a world of hurt. So I ended up laying it down. Mathematically, it's still probably correct to call since I already have $90 in the pot. That makes $270 of dead money, and it gives me the correct price. But I know it shouldn't matter, but I haven't made a damn hand today except for that ace queen. So I decided to be a little bit conservative and wait for a better spot. So after I put in the fold, the player on my left puts in the quick call, and they're going to go to a run out. Flop comes 10 high, and I'm kicking myself. Turn card is a 5 of clubs. Looks like a complete blank. River card is a 7 of clubs. They both roll over ace king, but one of them had ace king of clubs, so they made a flush. So even though I dodged a bullet on that hand, I think the correct play would be just to get it in with queens there. I had $90 already invested. If I had only a smaller amount, I think a fold is fine. But with $90 in there, it's probably best just to go ahead and call it off and hope for the best. A couple hands later, I get ace king on the button. The player who just won that last pot with ace king of clubs opens for a raise to 20. And of course, this is my turn to get some money back. So I make it 70. He thinks for a while before putting in the crying call, it seems. So I think he has something, maybe a middling pair, maybe something like ace queen that he's not that comfortable with. So we're going to go off to a flop, which comes not great if he has ace queen, because it comes queen, deuce, deuce. And there are a couple spades out there. He ends up checking it to me. I think this is a good spot to just c-bet my entire range. A queen is good for my raising range, and if he has a middling pocket pair, he might be influenced to fold. If he has a hand like ace king or maybe even king queen, I think I'll find out about it here. He thinks for a while and ends up laying it down. He did say that if the flop came 8 high, that he would have definitely have continued. So I think he had a hand like pocket nines, maybe pocket tens. Here I look down at 2 jacks from the hijack. There was 1 limper, so I opened for 20, and I get 3-bet from the player to my direct left. He's the one that had ace king of spades that previous pot. So I think he has a real hand, but jacks are too strong to fold, and I don't really feel comfortable putting in a raise. So call it is. So we go heads up to a flop with 127 in, which comes king 9-3 with 2 diamonds. I check it. I expect him to bet his entire range, and that's exactly what he does. He ends up betting for $50. So yeah, I could be up against a king. I also could be up against maybe a smaller pocket pair, say tens. Or he can have something like ace queen, ace jack. I put in 1 call, see what he does on the turn. Turn card comes is a 8 of diamonds, so brings in the flush draw. I check it over again, and he checks it back. After he checks it back, I feel like I have the best hand. It's possible he could be pot controlling with a king. He's afraid of a flush draw. I check it over again. He checks it back, says your jacks are good. So I told him I was impressed that he knew exactly what I had. I was pretty sure he had ace queen. So I've been playing for about 3 hours and haven't really made too many hands. Here I got king 4 of spades in the small blind. There's a $6 straddle. I go ahead and defend because there were 5 other people that limped in. The big blind puts in a big raise to 40. I was just going to fold this, but now I got a couple people putting in calls. And the stacks are really deep around the table. And I figure, yeah, a king high flush would probably be a pretty good pot to win. So I make a very loose call with my king 4 of spades. So we're going to be out of position against 3 other players, and I got a lousy hand in a $176 pot. Flop comes out jack 10 5 with the jack 10 of spades. So how sweet it is. We got the second nut flush draw. Of course, I check over to the initial aggressor. He puts out a bet for $80. First player folds out. Player on the button thinks for a moment and decides to put in the call. Here, I got a couple options. I can play crazy aggressive and just raise this thing up, trying to represent some sort of set like pocket fives or maybe 2 pair like jack 10. But I just put in the call and decide what to do on the turn. So with $416 in the pot, we see a turn card of an ace of clubs. Interesting card. It gives me a few more outs. And I check it again. I expect my opponent to probably size up if he has something really good. He checks it, and so does the player behind. So he might be pot controlling, or he might have a hand like maybe pocket queens or even pocket kings. River card comes as a brick. We miss everything. And now, whether to fire. I decided, what the hell, I'm not going to win it with king high. If he has a lone ace, maybe he will lay it down, thinking I might have something like king queen or some sort of two pair. But really, this is not a good spot to be bluffing. The way I played this hand, I really don't have that many premium hands in my range. It looks like I have a flush draw, and it looks like I missed my flush draw. Anyway, my opponent deciphers things out. He puts in the call. The other player ends up mucking, and he ends up showing ace-jack, so he was pot controlling at the end.
As you said, king four of spades is very loose for playing. It is deep stack, so it's understandable to play certain hands that can make a big hand. But here on the end, you really got to just give it up. There's really no chance of you representing a hand as strong as king, queen, or even aces up. It's very, very hard to do so. Your opponent is most likely pot controlling. At worst, he has a hand like ace, king, ace, queen, and he's probably going to call you down anyway. Even if you shove, I think he's going to probably end up calling you down because your hand and your betting just does not make sense. Just give it up, move on to the next hand.
All right, we finally find another big hand and pocket queens on the cutoff. There were a few limpers, so I raised to 25. I ended up getting 3 callers for the 25. So we're going to be heading off to a flop with 104 in the center. Flop comes out 8-7-3 with 2 clubs. So a pretty good flop for my hand. It gets checked around to me. Now, my opponents seem to be on the stickier side of things, so I'm not going to go with a small c-bet size here. I decided to bet about 2/3 pot, so I put out a bet for $60. I figure if someone wants to make some sort of flush or have a straight draw, they're going to pay a big price, because if blank comes on the turn, I'm really going to put a lot of pressure on them. I don't get that opportunity because the first player decides to check raise me to 150. Now, I've played a lot with this player, and he definitely has sets in his range. Even hands like 8-7 would be in his range. I just figured if he has a set, good for him. Most likely he has some sort of pair and a flush draw, or a straight and a flush combo draw. And I just didn't want him to get there cheaply. So I figure I'm going to be calling down. I might as well be getting it in when I think my hand is still good, and I jam. He doesn't snap call me right away, which is a good sign, so I'm taking all those sets off the table, and I'm thinking probably has something like maybe, I don't know, Jack 10 of clubs, maybe Jack 9 of clubs. He starts piling his chips right next to the line, and kind of moves them forward, and the dealer goes, is that a call? He goes, yeah. And he goes, well, you have to put it across the line. So he kind of just nudges it across. So it's a call. We get to see a run out, which comes king of spades and a 10 of spades. I show my hand, and he says, yeah, you just got me notched. So I think he had pocket jacks that hand. So I finally got even after that hand. The game started getting really wild. A lot of big pots. This one occurred. I didn't get the whole thing on film, just the last part of it. But it was 3-bet pre-flop with 3 players, $90 each. Flop bet was 80 on a Jack 9-5 board. Turn card comes as a queen. Now the button bets out for 360, and the big blind calls heads up. River card comes as an ace of clubs, puts out a possible flush. And now the big blind leads for 1,000. The button is tanking. He later told me that he had a set on this hand, and he couldn't believe that the player would get so lucky to go runner for the back door. He even said you probably have Jack X of clubs, but I can't get away from it. And he ends up making the call. The player did turn over Jack Deuce of clubs. Stay tuned for the bonus hands that are coming up next. So for this day, we were in for 1,000, ended up cashing out 1170, so we won $170. But the real action comes the next day with these 2 hands. So I've been extremely card dead at this table. Been there for an hour. I've played 2 hands. Both of them never went past the flop. So I look down at 2 6s in middle position, decide it's good enough to open for a raise to 15. I get a caller on my direct left, and then the next player calls, and then the next player calls. And before you know it, looks like we're going to have like a family pot. Everyone seems to be putting the calls, and it comes back around to the player in the big blind who's a competent player, and he decides to raise to 65. I think it's a little bit small for trying to shed anyone. It seems like it's only going to be inviting. I would normally just fold this hand 2 6s. Mariano would probably re-raise and isolate him and get it heads up with all that dead money in the pot. I decided just to call because with the 2 short stacks that are at the table, I don't think they're going to be folding. I think they're getting a great price. So it's going to be a very bloated pot. And I think it's going to go 5, maybe 6 ways to the flop, which will give me good odds on flopping a set. And the other 4 players all have pretty good stacks. So with all that in mind, I decided to, put in the call for the additional $50. Now the player to my direct left, he has a little bit short of $50 remaining, so he sticks it in there. I'm just going to round up just to make this simple because this goes multi-way. The next player ends up folding, and he's a good player with a deep stack, so I'm kind of glad he's out of there. The following player puts in the call. It goes back to the player in the button, or actually the player in the cutoff now, who is a short stack, goes all in for a little bit less. Player in the small blind, who closes the action, thinks for a long time, and then he puts in the call also. He later told me that he was thinking about re-squeezing for all his chips, which would put me in just a horrible spot, of course. He ends up putting in the call. So we got one of those super bloated pots with 2 players all in and 4 players active on this side. So dealer gets the side pot all figured out, and we go off to see a flop, which comes 9-5-4 with 2 spades. The first 2 players end up checking, and for me that's a green light that they have big overcards, and 6s need protection. So I only really have to worry about the player in the cutoff waking up with a hand. So hopefully this $200 bet will get him to fold, and I believe the other 2 would fold also. Well, it seems like a brilliant plan. Well, up until the point where my opponent says those magical words of all in, and he shoves for about $450. So it's going to cost me about $250 more to call. But what can I beat? I can beat a flush draw. I can beat a straight draw. I can beat 5. If he has a 9, I'm in trouble. If he has a set, I'm in trouble. But I really think he's more leaning towards a draw than anything else. And with it only cost me $250, I say only. But if it cost me $250 and he has, I would say over half his hands are those of a draw, I think I'm getting the right price. So I make the call.
No modestia.
Got a draw? I asked if he was on the draw, and he definitely said that he was. He shook his head, and so I just know I have to dodge a spade or an overcard. I get 2 cards that are overcards, but none of them that are spades. He says I missed. I roll over the 2 6s, and I take down this monster pot with a pair of 6s. Basically a hand at the bottom of my range from start to finish. And somehow I managed to dodge everything and come out smelling like roses at the end. This next hand I'm in the low jack, and I look down at 2 jacks. Open for a raise to 15. A solid player to my left puts in a raise to 45. And then the player on the button also puts in the call for 45. He's the person that was just involved in that hand where I had pocket 6s. Everyone else folds out. And because he's a solid player putting in a 3-bet, I decided to proceed with just a call with my 2 jacks. So we're going to go 3 ways to a flop with 142 in the center. Flop comes out 5-5-4 with 2 clubs. Pretty good flop for jacks. I decide to check to the razor, and he checks it. So I'm taking big pairs out of his range. The other player puts in a bet for $75. And when he cold calls the 3-bet, a lot of his hands contain pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 8s. And I can beat all those hands. So I just go ahead and put in the call, and the other player gets out of the way. So heads up to a turn with 292 in, and it comes to 6 of diamonds. Really shouldn't change too much unless he had exactly pocket 6s, or maybe 7, 8 of clubs. I check it over, he thinks for a moment, and puts out a bet for 135. I'm definitely not going to be folding, and if I put in 135, that leaves me with about a pot-sized bet left for the river. So why wait till the river? Let's just go ahead and jam it in now. Don't want him to get scared off with like an overcard if it comes, or a club. If he has pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 8s, even pocket 7s, he's going to be calling it off. So I get it in there, and he starts to tank for a while. I think he realizes that he's in trouble on this hand, that if I'm jamming, I probably have him beat. But he's probably still hot about losing to those pocket 6s earlier. That was a very large pot, and he's been kind of splashy since then. So he puts in the call. We're just hoping for a clean run out. It comes 7 of hearts. I turn over my jacks. He shows that he had pocket 9s. I didn't drag very many pots today, but the ones I did, they were big. And it really makes a difference in your wins and losses when you can win a couple huge pots, especially like these two. Anyway, it turned out to be a pretty good day. I only played for about 3 hours, cashed out a little over $2,000, so over a $1,500 win, and I'll take it. Thanks for making it to the end. I really do appreciate your support. And I also appreciate you guys hitting that like button and putting in a comment about one of these two hands or both of them. If everybody does that, then I think that YouTube will probably share this with more people. And the more people that get to watch my videos, the happier I get. And the happier I am, the more videos I make. So it works out for both of us. So please hit that like, make a comment. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It does help out the channel. Until next time, good luck at the tables.